President Trump is reiterating his claims that social media and search engines are working against conservatives and Republicans. Meanwhile, over 100 employees at Facebook are echoing his sentiments, saying that the company is intolerant of different views, particularly non-left liberal ideologies. Here's the president on this.
Well, I think that Google and Facebook and Twitter, I think they treat conservatives and Republicans very unfairly. And I think it's a very serious problem because they're really trying to silence a very large part of this country. And those people don't want to be silenced. It's not right. It's not fair. It may not be legal. But we'll see. We just want fairness.
Do you want to regulate them more? Is that what you're
We're just going to see. We're just going to see. You know what we want? Not regulation. We want fairness. If we have fairness, we're all very happy.
For more on this issue, we're joined by freelance journalist Jacob Silverman, and we're also joined by Dan Gaynor. He's the VP of Business and Culture at the Media Research Center. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. And employees at Facebook, Jacob, they're saying that there is political intolerance within the company. One of their senior engineers writes, "We claim to welcome all perspectives, but are quick to attack, often in mobs, anyone who presents a view that appears to be in opposition to left-leaning ideology." He goes on about that, and hundreds of others have backed him up. But this points to the bigger trend, the bigger picture. Is there anti-conservative bias on social media?
I think it depends how you define that. In terms of, is there bias on an institutional level from these companies where they're deliberately filtering out conservative voices? I don't think that's happening. I think that these systems are very complex and we don't always know what criteria goes into these algorithms.
But you feel that there is bias, just not intentional?
I think that there is a form of bias that can creep into these systems. For example, we've seen that when women with traditionally African-American names put their names into Google, you see things like ads for bail bonds or background checks. Now, that's a form of racism that we see appearing in search results. We don't always know why that's happening, but there are people studying these kinds of issues. Now, I don't think there's a deliberate sort of conservative bias that's appearing or unintentionally either way in these sorts of results, but I think there could be some cause for investigation, perhaps.
Dan, what do you think? Is there anti-conservative bias on social media?
Of course there is. And there's two levels of it. There's the institutional bias. These companies are generally liberal. They make deals with liberal organizations. Twitter, for instance, has a Trust and Safety Council that's got 25 US-based members. 12 of them are liberal, one's conservative. Google has cut deals with Wikipedia, which is untrustworthy and also liberal, and they'll post their content as part of the little mini profiles that appear. So the institutional level, we know there's a problem. And then at the employee level, you see Mark Zuckerberg, you see Jack Dorsey from Twitter, both acknowledge that they hire liberal employees, which is why you see some travesties like what happened with NRA TV's Dana Lash the other night, where people wishing that her children would die, and they couldn't even get it removed from Twitter until, of course, it got hit the media. And then it magically, oh yeah, that is a violation of terms of service. So we see problems on both levels, and that's the issue. Conservatives aren't looking for special treatment. I'll use the president's number. We're looking for fairness.
Looking for fairness. Jacob, to Dan's point, there have been complaints of intolerance from within. We just heard about the Facebook one. Google is also facing a lawsuit from an engineer there who claims that the company mistreats whites, males, and conservatives. If there is anti-conservative or anti-liberal bias within these organizations, doesn't it stand to reason that it would then make its way into the actual products?
It's possible, but I think this is all highly speculative. I think one thing in these companies' favor, perhaps, is the fact that they do have these mechanisms for people who to express their grievances or to say things like, hey, we're conservative employees at Facebook and we think our views aren't being represented. At the moment, it seems like actually they have a lot of opportunities to speak up at their companies and express their views.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that the product isn't hampered. But bigger picture here. I mean, we are in an unprecedented era, Dan. Around 4 companies dominate and control the ideologies that are propagated to society. It's never happened that so much power has been in such few hands. Do you think it's time for market for this to be regulated, or Is this a free market issue and government should not intervene?
Well, the problem with government regulation, Ronald Reagan used to say the scariest words in the English language, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. I think conservatives have good reason to doubt what a government hate speech policy would look like. It would be terrifying and probably worse than everything hate speech Twitter and Facebook have done. So no, I don't think regulation is good. I think what Donald Trump is doing right now, the use of the bully pulpit is very important. Now, there are some possibilities. He mentioned criminal issues. One of the things that people have addressed, this crops up in elections in various ways, including people who are running for office. That could run into the issues with the FEC. I'm not an expert on that, not going to try to be, but that's certainly one of the things people need to look at. Ultimately, we represent a coalition of 40 conservative organizations that are trying to work together and work with these companies to see if we can find a way out of this mess where everybody gets treated equally, because that's ultimately our goal. We don't want better treatment, we just want equal treatment.
Jacob, should this be sorted out internally, maybe reprogramming those algorithms, or should we now let government step in here?
Well, I think there are two things that could be done. First, it is possible that Google and Facebook and other companies that are in the business of sorting a lot of information could be more transparent in terms of what criteria goes into that process. Second, I don't think all regulation is equal. I think we should be concerned, and maybe my counterpart and I might share a similar concern, which is that you have, as you said, a few big companies who are in the business of basically deciding, mostly through automated, very opaque systems, what millions of people see. So to me, that is a cause for some kind of government intervention, whether it's to encourage competition, to break up some of these monopolies, or to just study the issue closer, which they haven't really done.
Yeah, well, lots to develop in this space as we're in this new unprecedented era. Thank you so much, Jacob Silverman and Dan Gaynor. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.